yet again with another exciting episode of Maker That Money, live here on the YouTubes every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific. With me today, as always, my trusty partner in crime, Mr. Andrew Mayhall of 3D Gloop. Andrew, how are you this fine week?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well. Doing well.
Awesome.
You know, it's one of those weeks where we just kind of,
Yeah.
peaks and valleys. But
Ups and downs.
you
Yeah.
look at that, and I like to think, the line is always kind of slanting upwards. So it's like we make our little progress, and that's all you can really ask for these days. It seems.
Fantastic.
Yeah, man.
That's
It's been a interesting week. We were talking ahead of the show that it's funny that if we didn't have this, I'm going to let you guys in on a little bit of a secret here. Everybody in the chat that's with us, greetings, welcome. That if we didn't have this show, like the whole reason we do this is the only opportunity we have to actually look at ourselves. And evaluate the hair and like if we need a haircut and all that stuff. So, if
beard
anybody,
trim.
beard trim. If anybody's listening back on the podcast later, as I mentioned, we record every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific on YouTube. So feel free to come and join us, chime in on the chat. We love your feedback that way. So that's what we're talking about. You can't see us, you can only hear us. But that's fine because this is a podcast, so you don't need to see us, and it's mostly pretty boring anyway. You're just seeing two talking heads with some fake stained glass in the background. But this week, we're going to get into customer retention, and more specifically, we kind of teased this last week on last week's pod, the cost of finding new customers versus retaining old. Make new customers, but keep the old. One is silver, the other is gold. It's our variant on the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But we'll get into that in a second. You know what's coming first. We like to share before we get into the meat and potatoes all of the essential calls to action. So the first is smash the like button, subscribe, tell a
All of that
friend,
fun
give
stuff.
us a comment, tweet at us, all that stuff. All the information for that is down below in the description and our lower third here. You can find us both on the Twitters at Repkord and at 3D Gloop. We love hearing from you. Also, we've got the Maker That Money hotline link above us. If you're brave enough to want to call in, we are a call-in show. So
we haven't had anyone in a while.
We haven't had any callers in a while, and that's fine because it's more time for me to get to listen to myself, which is also what this is really just about.
Yeah, that's what this is all about.
Yeah. My vanity knows no bounds. But the other thing that we always do at the top of the show, or we try to always do, is let's focus on the positive, right? Let's talk about some wins. So you know it was coming, man. I hope you had your win. I hope you had your win ready, and it's going to be a new and exciting win. Go.
Okay, well, I don't know how exciting it is, but it's pretty nerdy.
Okay, nerdy's good.
We've been spending the whole past couple of weeks building out our SKU, that stands for stock keeping unit.
That's what SKU
paradigm,
stands for.
if you will.
Yeah.
So relabeling all of our stuff so it has barcodes and numbers and all of that other fun stuff.
Well, listen, as silly and nerdy as that sounds, I can attest to how important that is as a key function of organization. And you might laugh if you're listening in and be like, wait a minute, you have no inventory control, or you haven't done that yet, and you've been in business for this long. I mean, we've had SKUs, but we've rarely had consistency and tied them to inventory, and inventory still continues to be a struggle for us as we layer on new things. And I know there's always better ways, right, to do it and stuff like that. So I'm going to piggyback off of you and say that we've been working on some new stuff too. And my main beef is how often we seem to still go to zero on some stuff before like purchasing, aka
we're out of stickers,
gets the notice, right? And so it's just like, how is this still a problem? And we've tried a number of different things. There's a big whiteboard like literally in front of my desk that just says like, out of stock, 0, only 10 left, or whatever it is. And we have tried to implement a min-max system, and we can talk more on inventory control at another time. But And we've looked at an ERP system. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you got to have an ERP or an MRP or, like all this stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm strongly against adding expense and complexity at the level that we're at. I am taking a more pragmatic approach. I believe this is solvable with basic spreadsheet tools. And yes, it can always be better and stuff like that. But we came up with a system that, looking at 80/20, is, I think, going to meet a good amount of, at least take care of this initial pain point. And what it is just a basic, like, there are tabs on my spreadsheet for the products that we fabricate, that we resell, and those subsheets, basically, there's a minimum quantity number that we establish for each, and that's based on how long it usually takes us to get more, right? So what kind of lead time we anticipate for it.
Yep.
And then an on-hand number. And so every Wednesday, when we have no ship Wednesday, or that's the plan, we go through, we do an inventory count, which is, it's really more about data entry than anything, right? No matter what tool you're doing, you just have to be consistent about making sure those numbers are updated. So we go in, we update that spreadsheet, and there's trick ways to go about it in the future. Like maybe we can get barcoding and things that make it easier than having to go down the spreadsheet and find the right column or row. But you basically, when that number dips below the min value, it will automatically highlight it and then kick it over to a separate purchasing spreadsheet that lives up on my wall. So now I have a digital purchasing spreadsheet that I can access anywhere, not just sitting at my desk at work. Just using some nice conditional logic in there. Pretty basic, but I think it's going to cover a lot of ground. So I'm excited to implement that. The main thing is going to be minimizing that garbage in, garbage out problem where we got to have updated numbers on a regular basis. And it is tedious going around and counting some of these things. So a lot of the systems are about making it easy on your team to get a count, and it doesn't necessarily have to be 1-to-1. Like if we know we have a full bin or whatever, we can get a rough estimate. It's what I don't want is, hey, we're getting those flags in earlier, and it's silly stuff like stickers and like boxes and baggies and things that we haven't like even kind of properly put into the inventory stuff. We're out of toilet paper in the bathroom. Like it's like literally that stuff. So it all goes there now. So there's office supplies, labels, all that. And anyway.
Nice.
So I'm excited.
Nice.
We'll see.
That's awesome.
Ask me in a few months and stuff how it's going.
Yeah, hopefully that makes it a lot smoother to run things. So
yeah. All right, let's get a couple shout outs in real quick. Mike with all his he's not even he's the most underpaid guy in the chat in that we pay him nothing and he just is telling people to buy our stuff and to
all
subscribe. The time. He is not I promise you, he is not a plant. He does this of his own kindness. We appreciate him. Zombie Hedgehog, good afternoon to you.
How's it going?
To the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. Andrew's in the Central in the heartland. So it's just morning. We're just getting started here. But I know Andrew's probably been up for hours and already done tons and tons of stuff. Yeah. Vishal, good to see you, my friend. King of the Slice Works. We love Slice Works. He gave me some of his filament to try. It's sitting right here, and I'm waiting for the right.
I need to get some.
I'm waiting for the right opportunity for the right print. It's a nice gray, and I like a good gray, and I'll tell you why. Because gray just is the best color for showing detail in prints generally. There's something about the way the light reflects
white blows it out, and black is too dark to see shadows.
Yeah.
So
it's great.
It's
just
perfect.
like a nice gray. I like a nice gray.
Yeah.
Flying Purple Cow, good morning. Local maker, Michigan. K2, king of the rep. I think he might have. Well, I don't know if he does or not, but he's always telling us about how much he loves his rep racks, which we appreciate.
Oh, nice.
Pez Liz, happy lunch to you. It's lunchtime. Lunchtime Liz, we'll call her. Vast CNC. I've not seen your face here before, but welcome if you're new. Brought a bunch of Polymaker filament on 3D Print General's 100K stream.
Oh, I heard about that. It was like a 50% off discount
as well.
So
that's a smoking deal, man. Yeah, lots of good Black Friday deals. We moved a lot of stuff, screwed up a few orders too, but hey, that's what happens. Phantom Printer says he's got some of our filament that came the other day. Can't wait to try it. I love to hear and see. Post what you print, man. And Alex, our friend across the pond, fellow
Mm-hmm.
business owner as well. I hope you are well, as well. So, okay, we've done all the housekeeping,
Awesome.
the homework. We'll continue to feed us your commentary and questions. You never know, I might pick on you at some point. But let's dive in on customer retention. So first question for you, Andrew, is what does it mean? What does customer retention even mean? What does that
Ooh.
mean to you?
Okay. Yeah. So, well, I mean, it means, kind of in the name, retaining those customers. So,
You idiot. Yeah.
let's say, for instance, a customer comes and buys a product, and then you don't see them again. There's a
Oh,
handoff, there's an
sad
exchange of
face.
goods. Does that customer come back to buy more goods?
Love me and leave me.
How
Yeah.
yeah, how do you continue bringing that customer back in? Like, let's say we have a physical store, and we're running our bakery. We want to have the best dang donuts or muffins that we can make, so that when a customer comes in and buys it, they're like, oh, this muffin or this donut is so dang good, I've got to go back the next day. That is
Right.
customer retention. How can we keep
Right.
them coming back day in and day out?
Get them
So,
addicted. Right.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So have a product that has addictive properties, is what you're saying, is the best way
Mhm.
to retain customers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
That's interesting. I'll bet some drug dealers have some of the best customer retention data there is, the stats, because
Probably.
I know they're mining their stats too. So
Mhm.
they're aware.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay. Yeah. No. So good. So when we look at this, I mean, to me, it seems maybe there's some analogy to employment and hiring to some extent, where we hear the phrase, you're better off retaining an existing customer or continuing to sell to your existing customers than you are having to
Mhm.
hire and train new employees. There's truth to
Mhm.
that.
Oh, sure. I mean, when it comes down to a customer that you already know, let's say for instance they've come in, and you have a usual. Again, let's go back to that bakery analogy. You
Mhm.
have a usual, so you can kind of depend on these, and you know that it's not going to cost you anything for that customer to come back in.
Right.
Maybe you give them a small discount, but that is something where you're saying, okay, hey, I'm going to depend on you coming back, so I'm going to give you a 10% discount. You got a usual repeat customer. Whereas the cost of getting someone new might even be higher. Like, let's talk about advertising. I'm
Yeah.
going to advertise my bakery. Well, now I've got to put an ad out in the newspaper, or maybe on the television, or a radio show. It's going to cost me money to get people to come
Expensive.
into my store. And
Right.
that's expensive.
Yeah.
And, then it's all about, how do I keep them as a customer? Because I just invested a bunch of money in that.
That's
Now
the
I got to figure out how
retention.
to keep them.
Right. Right. So churn and
So,
burn is costly to some
mhm.
extent too. It doesn't do you any good if you attract customers in and then they ultimately feel like they were sold something they didn't expect or want or whatever. And these are
Mhm.
as obvious as that may sound to you guys, these are little sales tactics. Like, a lot of companies
Mhm.
just don't care, and it depends on what the product is, right? If it's a fad based thing, or if it's like, hey, we got to get while the getting's
Exactly.
good, we don't care. Just
Mhm.
get the sales, right?
Yep.
But that's a short sighted, we're in it for the long game. I want to be
Oh,
around.
absolutely. Mhm.
At some point, you're going to burn too many people where nobody's going to trust you anymore. I mean, that's about building brand, that's
Mhm.
reputation. I mean, you know,
Mhm.
um, I know that that's not appealing to a lot of salespeople. Like they want to chase that high of, you know, I did this and got this result. And a
Yep.
lot of times that is a like slow, long burn, long tail effort.
Yep.
Um,
Mhm.
and you kind of need a little of both sometimes. I mean, sometimes there's a little bit of a 1-2 punch. Obviously, you gotta burst. You're gonna still have to bring in, if you want to grow, you got to
Oh,
bring
sure.
in new customers. You got to introduce new products and ideas and have
Mhm.
things to sell. Or you
Mhm.
maybe I don't know. There's plenty of companies that
Sure.
just lots
Well,
of
yeah,
opportunity on just one product.
so
So what do you think?
yeah, if you had a, let's go back to that bakery analogy again. If you had a, a bakery in a small town, and you knew that, like, all of the customers were going to come back every single day, that's great, but you're not growing your business. You're going to forever maintain. But I would argue that, a plateau or a forever maintaining is actually a negative strategy, because at some point, those customers are going to move out of town, or they're not going to, maybe, something happens. They're not going to be able to make it in. You're not going to be able to continue selling to every single one of them. There's
Yep.
a natural drop off rate,
Yep.
right? And at some point, if you're not getting those new customers in, you're never going to grow. And in fact, you're probably headed for a brick wall, unfortunately,
Hmm.
where, it's going to come to a stop. That's where it's important to, obviously continue marketing, continue getting out and trying to bring in those new customers if your intention is to grow and even maintain. Because again, there's that natural churn that's going to happen with your customers, even if you had a long-term, reoccurring customer base.
This is a really interesting topic, and I'm gonna tease this right now because as soon as we're done with this, I want to go throw it on the future idea thing. But like the concept of sustainability, and this has been in the zeitgeist a little bit lately in the context of
Hmm.
some YouTubers and
Hmm.
basically people that are in the business of being an influencer, of being a
Sure.
content creator on these things. The sustainability piece with your business, one, it's so interwoven with what is your strategy? What are you trying to achieve? Like
Hmm.
how long are you trying to be around? Because it doesn't do you any good if you get on that loop where you're required to continue to grow in order to
Hmm.
continue to pay for the more people that you've hired and the more inventory you like that can really really add up quick and
Hmm.
burn you out. And
Sure.
I've been in danger of it. You've been in danger of it. Like we really don't talk about that as business owners nearly as much as I think we should.
Sure.
Because I have
Sure.
met a number of and I think about the bakery example, but I think a lot of like mom and pop shops where they're
Hmm.
just like, no, we're only going to be open Monday through Friday for breakfast
Hmm.
and lunch, and then
Yep.
they still have to pay their rent for the week, and they're missing out on a huge opportunity for like weekend crowds and dinner and all this stuff. And they're like, we don't care. Like
Hmm.
we are totally happy for this to be a comfortable, fun lifestyle. The minute that we keep chasing
Absolutely.
after growth, and that is a
Hmm.
perfectly valid position, but it's also
Oh,
a
yes.
luxury, in my opinion, of longevity to some
Hmm.
extent, right? Like you have that degree of loyalty where the company is sustainable in that way. To me, that
Hmm.
feels like a healthy place to be,
Hmm.
Like I don't know about your goals, but it's like I would I make it very clear on my customer service stuff. We are open Monday through Friday, or our customer service hours are Monday through
Hmm.
Friday, 9 to 5.
Sure. Yep.
Um, we're open. I mean, I'm working on stuff all the time, and I
Hmm.
even have people helping with productions off hours. But the goal is that I'm not trying to grow this thing into a monster where I'm burning through people. We're running like I could have swing shifts producing and all sorts of other stuff.
Oh, sure. Hmm.
That doesn't do anybody any good if you're not around and you've driven yourself out, crazy. And
Absolutely.
so I
Hmm.
know that, like, yes, I want to grow, but I want to do so in a sustainable fashion. That's why we talk about bootstrapping versus
Hmm.
seeking venture funding, and why the financial structure, is what
Hmm.
it is. Now that the flip side of that is that you're going to feel like it's tight a lot of the time
Yep.
as you're in these growth phases. But
Absolutely.
I
I
would
think
love
it's a
to be,
fantastic
yeah.
I think that's a fantastic, talking point for a future show, but I think it also really kind of ties in, exactly what we're talking about here is, in terms of that customer retention, and then, getting those new customers, that cost of getting those new customers, and the cost of growth. Because, ultimately, again, like I was trying to say, I think that if you are constantly only marketing to your existing customers, at some point it is going to run dry. That well is going to dry up a bit, and you're then going to be on a downward trajectory.
Mhm.
So it's a balance, right? It's absolutely balance.
I think it
So
can be, but again, it totally depends on your product. Like if you're selling a
sure.
consumable,
Hmm.
yeah, you're right. Like yes, you always want new
Hmm.
customers to come in and stuff, but like I think I've seen some pretty viable businesses where they're just like, hey, let's get that repeat customer and like keep going, and
Sure.
there is an inherent amount of like people just via word of mouth, right? Like that's a
Hmm.
really good, in my opinion, that's the best marketing that there possibly is. Like
Oh
when you don't
yes.
have to
Hmm.
actively go out and spend money on
Hmm.
advertising, And we're really
Yeah.
lucky that most of our customer base is that way. That
Yep.
people see a rep box or a rep rack or
Mhm.
any of the things we have, and they go, "What is that? I want that for my makerspace or whatever."
Mhm.
Um, and and now I've got people advocating for me,
Mhm.
like Mike,
Yep.
who I don't pay, and I
Yep.
appreciate them, but that is not that takes a lot of time, and you have to give to the community. You have to
Sure.
participate in the community. You have to be more of that mom and pop shop, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think a lot
Mhm.
of people, and I don't want to, yeah, turns. Tell me if in the chat if you feel so, but it's like I don't think a lot of people look at me the same way that they look at some of the other people in the 3D printing industry when they think Repkord, they think Pooch a lot of the time, right? Like
Mhm.
we are
Yep.
pretty synonymous, right? Oh,
Yep.
I want to work with Pooch. Whereas when you're thinking about, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody, if you're trying to think about Matter Hackers or something like that, like it's more like,
Mhm.
no, I go to Matter Hackers as the store, but
Yep.
I don't have a
Yep.
personal relationship in the same way. Um,
Absolutely.
which I'm still,
Mhm.
I'm a small, no disrespect to Matter Hackers. I'm just saying it's a completely different model when you're trying to
Mhm.
be the bigger reseller store, interface. I don't know. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, so I think to kind of move the conversation forward a bit in terms of if you are trying to get new customers, how does one do that? How does one even like balance that as you're kind of talking like having these repeat customers. So how do you get a new customer and then turn them into that repeat customer?
Right.
Because that's the important part. So you're talking about how you have people here in the chat or just in general they're thinking like, oh, I want to work with Repcord, that means Pooch.
Right.
How do you get to that point,
So
right? So what is that process?
and I'm
Hmm.
gonna tell you the secret. It's not really any kind of secret, but it's the same as the secret for building followers on YouTube or any other content creation platform or social media. It's
Hmm.
engagement. It's
Yep.
100% about engagement. And
Hmm.
we do that in a number of different ways. So the first thing most people are going to think of is like customer service, right? So
Hmm.
you, I oftentimes say like the orders we screw up often end up being
Hmm.
the best because we are required to engage to fix
Yep.
a problem. So it starts as a negative a lot of the time, but the
Hmm.
people's impression of who you are and the business and who you are is like what you do when things go wrong.
Hmm.
That you're really graded
Sure.
on. Like there are so
Hmm.
many customers that just like got what I wanted, happy, never hear from them again. They don't do
Hmm.
you much good because they
Yep.
haven't really gotten to know who you are, what you're about, and how you problem solve for
Hmm.
them, how you're making their life better.
Hmm.
That's one way. Another way
Hmm.
is going to these shows that we talk about, like being out in front, participating in the community events, the Rep Rap festivals for us, or whatever your
Hmm.
industry festival is. You have to put in some face time. You
Yep.
have to engage. Like I know a lot of people are not into social media and they say like, "Oh, it's toxic and all this stuff." Yeah, there are corners of any group, whether it's social media or
Hmm.
any physical group. There's always those people that are the curmudgeons that are just bringing everybody down. But honestly, if you step back and look at it and say like you
Yep.
don't have to engage with the entire group. And we're
Hmm.
lucky that social media gives us the tools to block and mute and do all
Yep.
these other things that you can cultivate that list and now participate in a conversation in a way that is a really positive thing. Like I love Twitter. I know there's a lot of people
Hmm.
throwing a lot of shade at Twitter these days because of what
Hmm.
Elon's doing is toxic and all this stuff. And I'm like, the
Hmm.
area that I'm in is generally pretty positive. Like yes, I
Yep.
can I can go out I can go out of bounds sometimes, and sometimes I'm guilty of like getting a little snarky on
Sure.
stuff or whatever, but it's honestly it's entertaining, it's value and stuff like. But same for any other platform, Instagram, Facebook, all this other stuff, and they each kind of have their
Hmm.
little nuances, right? Like
Oh yeah.
I don't like Facebook groups as much because I think there's more toxicity, or Reddit, or whatever.
Hmm.
But the point is getting your face out there, engaging in some conversation, maybe some healthy debate sometimes, as long
Hmm.
as the
Yeah.
discourse is good. Um, not engaging the trolls, don't feed the trolls and all that stuff, and that takes some time, and sometimes you're gonna screw up and stuff.
Sure.
But I mean, that is engagement, and I think that does
Mhm.
have value, and there is value in this the same way if you're trying to be an influencer, YouTuber, content creator. It's
Mhm.
retention and engagement. Those are the two main tools. I was having a fantastic conversation with Mars Gizmo on this at Form Next, and talked to him last week as well.
Okay. Mhm.
Um, you look at why Adrian has been so successful with his channel. He is as interesting as this is. He is the largest YouTuber in the 3D printing space there is, and like most people don't think Mars Gizmo when they think of who are the primary uh,
Mhm.
influencers, but by following and by amount of content
Mhm.
and stuff, and it's because he's a student of the system. He has learned very readily how to
Mm.
get the best engagement and the best retention. And
Mhm.
it's the same for any business, engagement and retention. So retention is what we talked about earlier, right? When you
Yep.
engage them, you get them involved in the conversation, you let them understand who you are. It's a lot harder to throw shade at somebody when you're face to face with them, or where you know, you're like, oh no, that he's a
Mhm.
good dude. When
Yep.
people don't know you from Adam, I don't mean
Mhm.
any specific Adam, I'm just using the saying, then it's very easy for them to make assumptions, right? You want to
Oh,
limit the
sure.
amount of assumptions that they can make. So you tell me
Mhm.
now what you think the key to retention and getting that engagement is.
Yeah, well, so we're kind of in an interesting space because we have a consumable product. And so I'll speak from my experience here when it comes to working with this consumable product and our customers specifically. For us, very similar to what you're saying, it's about that engagement, but it's also about taking that opportunity to make something that happened, a bad situation a little bit better. If there are things that we can do to help that customer out, or things that we can do to kind of win over that that lifetime support, because I've seen it again firsthand, like what you're saying. Oftentimes it's the negative situations that allow you to have a touch point with that customer,
Yep.
and then they get to see who you are as an individual, but also as an organization as a whole, and that completely changes things. I can't tell you how many times that I'd get emails where they come out guns blazing,
Oh
and
God, yeah.
they're very
Yeah.
upset, and then all of a sudden they realize, oh wait, you're actually talking to me and communicating to me, and you hear that customer, and then they're just like, oh, okay, like
Yeah.
this is nice, this is a good change of pace, which it's terrible that it's like that, but it absolutely helps. For us as well, I think it comes down to listening to customer feedback. There are plenty of times where our product has failed in some regard or some fashion,
Yep.
and trying to figure out how could we make that product better, and then provide again a good, high quality product, or own the mistakes that you make. We've had an issue where we shipped out a bad batch, and we like called out everything saying, hey, listen, we screwed up, please get in touch. Again, it's a little bit more of a, okay, we screwed up. Can you contact us? But owning those mistakes publicly
Right.
and being transparent about it, I think also goes a really long way.
Oh, it's huge.
Um, y- you
Huge.
know, yeah. And then the next piece is again, this is, I think, really coming back to being a consumable product. But if you have a good, high quality product that, a customer enjoys using, they're naturally going to be, again, more prone to coming back. So that bakery analogy, you give them a really good muffin or a really good donut, they're
Yep.
probably going to come back when it comes time to get, when they're hungry again.
Yeah.
In this case, they come back when they're like, oh hey, I need more glue. There it is, they're
Yeah.
right there. And in many cases we could reward that customer for coming back. So these are things where, yes, we are going to give a customer, a returning customer, a slight discount. It costs us a little bit, but in the long run, we're going to drive up what we call that customer lifetime value number. And so
Right.
in business, that's incredibly valuable, because whether it's coming from planning and forecasting your sales, or if, let's say, for instance, you're trying to go out and either get a bank loan or raise some money to grow your business, knowing what your customer lifetime value is
Mm.
immensely beneficial, because now you're able to say, well, I know that if I sell X number of bottles of Gloop this month, I'm going to convert 20% of those to returning customers over the course of 96 days.
Right.
And so these are actually some real numbers. Like I'm throwing out some real numbers here, like around 22%.
Sharpen your pencils, guys. Yeah.
They would convert into a new customer in an average of 96 days. They would come back and purchase another bottle of our product, and from there we can then start counting on this, and that customer lifetime value creeps up every time they come in and purchase. And now we have around a $200 customer lifetime value. So we know that if a customer is converted into a recurring customer, we can on average expect around $200 of income revenue from that one individual customer.
Yeah.
Multiply that over the course of however many customers, now it becomes a numbers game. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, it's
Yeah.
all about numbers for us, because we do absolutely care about the customers. But
Sure.
this is where it becomes so important to have those reoccurring customers. And then
Sure.
on top of that, for growth, to get those new customers, because it's a numbers engine. So the more numbers you feed it, potentially the more numbers you're going to get out of it.
Right. Well, the CLV is an interesting metric, and I know you're a far greater
Mhm.
student of these like kind of metrics and stuff. I've never actually calculated out what ours is.
Mhm.
I would imagine because we have a higher price point, it would be different for me, obviously, than for you. But you
Mhm.
have a consumable, and I have
Mhm.
a more of a one time,
A
or
one time.
maybe I can sell
Mhm.
upgraded versions and stuff like that. So it's variable.
Mhm.
You never know. And then obviously as we expand our portfolio and have offerings in different ways, like your CLV is going to vary depending on like
Mhm.
what your customer came for. But
Mhm.
obviously you have something that can average out, and it's a good stat to have on hand. So if you, like you said, if you're trying to seek funding, if you're trying to seek investment, and you can say like, no, this is like our recurring customer base and all that stuff. I want to go to the chat for a second, just for a couple
Sure.
comments. Lots of good stuff in here. First of all, we talked about events earlier. There is a proposed new Rep Rap festival coming up called the Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Festival in
Mhm.
April in the Denver, Colorado region, which is a nice place to
Yep.
be. So shout out to them. We always love Rep Rap festivals. I hope they're able
Yes.
to get it off the ground and going. I'm watching with much interest. Um,
Yep.
Phantom Printer was talking about that.
Awesome.
What else do we have in here? Oh, Mike says anytime you're at an event, speaking of events, you're a billboard for your brand.
Absolutely.
One of the things I would add, or maybe as a little subheading to it, is like to me, a lot of times it's about adding that humanity to the whole
Mhm.
process. And so anytime people can associate, like, I'm dealing with an individual, because we talk
Mhm.
about, we like to vent like, hey, look at what this
Oh,
snarky
yes.
customer said. Like, there are so many people that are so frustrated and have such a low expectation of customer service these days that they feel
Mhm.
like they rant, or they send like a terrible email because they just don't expect to get any return. It's like cathartic for them. And then
Mhm.
when they get a response, they immediately, not always, but like a lot of times for me, they'll change their tune. Like, oh my God, you replied. And I'm like, yeah, of course I replied. I'm like, you're sending an email to my
Mhm.
support thing.
Yep.
I
Mhm.
had a tweet earlier in the week where somebody decided they were going to use a fake name and a fake email, literally because they just wanted to like slap me, because they didn't like the build
Uh-huh.
video or something like that. And that happens from
Uh-huh.
time to time too. And you have to have a thick skin around that. Like, I I've told you before, like, I love when things go wrong, as backwards as
Mhm.
I'm ashamed, immediately, and I feel they're terrible to wake up to when somebody's pissed off. But if they're giving you an opportunity to correct, then that is an
Mhm.
opportunity, and that is an opportunity again to win them over. Somebody in the, was
Mhm.
it Chem Nerd, asked, he's like, "Oh, you screwed up our order intentionally, so you can win me for life." Well, you did.
Yep.
I don't know what we did, but I promise we don't do it intentionally. Like, we have
Yeah.
enough screw
We
ups
have secret dice where we
on
roll
our
it and they're
house.
like, okay,
Like,
this order we're gonna screw up.
this is an opportunity to win this guy over. Let's kind of fudge it and see what happens. No,
Mhm.
I'm not that smart. We're unfortunately still struggling as we grow and have training for other people, and stuff just gets missed. And you can't,
Mhm.
you can't beat yourself up about it. It's what you do about it and how you fix it and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
the vast majority of people are very kind about it. Hey, their approach is, I love it even when they're like, did I miss something? Is there,
Yep.
is it my
Yeah.
fault somehow? And I'm like, no, we
Yeah.
messed up. Like, we'll
Yeah.
send you another one. Here's a tracking number. Like, we'll make it right.
Yep.
We always make it right.
Yep.
There are times when expectations of what somebody should be entitled to don't necessarily line up, but the vast majority of
Mm-hmm.
the time, it's a good opportunity. And not just the customer piece, but that's where the learning lives, that I like to say as well. That it helps us refine our process so these things happen less often, so that we can improve our product, so that we can be more efficient and more effective and
Mm-hmm.
more profitable and all those things. So it's a good thing. It's just sucks in the moment
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, Kemner, no, we didn't screw it up on purpose. Yeah. That'd be like advanced chess, and it could backfire on us as well too, because there are times where
Oh yeah.
people are just beyond help. You never know who you're going to trigger or who you're going to run across when
Yep.
you're in this. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, adding some humanity to it, make it so that people understand who they're dealing with. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have, there's still a lot of opportunity for us to improve. The about section of the website. I think a lot more people, when I'm looking at the analytics, go there and try to look and understand who they're dealing with, because there's a lot of
That's
people
a
that
really interesting point. We see
assume
very similar. Yeah.
they
Mm-hmm.
assume that when you don't give them any context, they'll be like, "Oh, this is like a 30-person company in a skyscraper somewhere," or I
Mm-hmm.
don't know why. I'll get the
Mm-hmm.
funniest emails sometimes. We'd love to come down to your corporate office and meet with your
Yep.
team and all this stuff. I'm like, my corporate office is my garage and it's me,
Yeah.
or at least that's what it was originally. We
Yep.
don't have a corporate office. We have a metal building with a tiny little built-out, office space in it. So it's funny, and we're not generally open to the public. But the point being, like, help people understand who they're dealing with. And so, like, I know I need to put some pictures of like my guys packing stuff, and just kind of just to
Mm-hmm.
see, what we're building and what we are and who we are. I think that's important. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. In for something that's kind of important for us. Is now when we started the company, back in 2018. We kind of went down that path of, okay, well, we don't want everyone knowing how small we are, or how like this thing's running out of my house, or that sort of stuff. But I think, especially in this community, that transparency and that openness really goes to pay, goes a long way, and it earns the respect of a lot of other people here, and they're like, wow, this is really cool. And you kind of get this, this crowd of cheerleaders around you
Yeah.
saying, hey, keep going, and they kind of help build you up so that you are capable of moving and taking to that next step.
Right.
So again, it comes down to just being open with what you're doing, like, and just sharing it many times.
So, talking some other strategies, there's a really big one that we need to implement, that's been on my radar for a long time in terms of improvement, and that's when we
Hmm.
talk about customer retention stuff. I do not do a very good job of following up post sale. We do not.
Yep.
I don't know what you do. I know that there's automations that exist and stuff like that. Like, oh, hey, leave a review, or we
Yep.
just wanted to see how things were going. That is such an
Hmm.
easy thing to do, and I keep saying, like, I need to do that, but we haven't. And so 2023 goals, big one
Hmm.
is like better follow up, because
Nice.
there's a lot of people out there that I think would that are just being polite, that might be a little bit disappointed, but aren't disappointed enough where they feel like they're going to take the initiative to go complain, right? But it's
Hmm.
like, I really want to get a better understanding of that bell curve. I want to
Hmm.
understand, where's some more opportunities, like, because I think that there's a number of people out there that would
That's a
prefer
good
things
point.
to be a little bit different, but just don't want to say something, and
Hmm.
they probably won't order again because they're like, it's just meh, like,
Yeah.
um and maybe there's some opportunity to capture those people and to understand and to learn, if nothing else, just to like get that feedback, right? And so
That's a really good point.
you're not gonna
Hmm.
get that feedback if you don't ask. I know
Hmm.
that. I just it hasn't been a main priority. I do know that our Shopify platform does have some automations that we can implement for that, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think that that's a probably a wise thing to turn on. A lot of the times I don't feel like I'm quite ready to receive the feedback too, because it's we're dealing with enough coming in the door already,
Yeah.
and to give ourselves like more emails and more things to have to respond to feels like it can be overwhelming when it's just like the three of us right now,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still critical, right?
So there really is something to that, because this goes back to another episode that we were talking about when it comes to customer reviews.
Mhm.
We started experiencing, or experimenting with those aspects of that automation, where after 2 weeks of delivery, we'd send out a simple little email saying, "Hey, let us know how it goes. Let us know your thoughts," that sort of stuff. And I think that is an incredibly valuable thing that we even aren't doing super well. And so yeah, that's something to absolutely look into. Whether it's you're
Yeah,
selling filament and you want to ask, like, hey, what did you print with us? Like, share a picture, tag us in social media.
absolutely.
Send a picture of your rep box hanging on the wall. That sort
I'm
of stuff.
so people will do that out of just
Hmm.
kindness, and I love that, and
Hmm.
I always reply, I thank them and stuff, and when talking about, I'll give you my quick and dirty customer service tips here in just a second, but on that note, people will reach out and there's like, hey, I just want to share a picture, I'm using it, it's making my life better, and I go,
Hmm.
that is so awesome, thank you for taking time out of your day to do that. It's not
Hmm.
hard, and I guarantee you that if I reach out and ask more people to do that, I would be flooded with this stuff. And
Hmm.
we really do a terrible job, and I've said this for a long time, and I've had this suggestion for a long time of just like sharing those wins, like putting up like
Yep.
a gallery of like rep boxes in action, like something
Hmm.
like that, or using it for social media. I've even gone as far as asking, is it okay if I post this? Sometimes I'll take it and I'll be like, hey, so and so just sent me this email, isn't this cool? Look at their setup, because a lot of it
Yep.
is that's the real great
Hmm.
community engagement feel, and I
Yep.
appreciate it, and I know that that goes a long way towards our advertising as well.
Hmm.
And it helps trigger people, give them ideas about how they might want to set up their environment
Hmm.
in a cleaner, more organized, better way. I'm
Hmm.
like, hey, that could be a good tool for me. So
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's one of those interesting things too. Like, when a new 3D model drops and everyone, like, kind of gets on board, like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I see in Twitter and in Instagram people showing their prints of it. It's one of those things that I do believe it helps build that community. It's something really interesting. I know that we don't do it well, and it could really help.
oh man, people are using
In
Gloop every day, all day. It'd be like, just say, hey, take a quick
Yeah.
picture of you glooping something,
Hmm.
and put it
Yep.
up there,
Hmm.
and then have the Gloopy Awards every year or whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
I got a
Oh,
million of
that's
them.
actually a fun idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive in on some more tangible stuff as
Hmm.
we're rounding out, just because I really want
Sure.
to be as best a resource as we can for people looking for ideas. So we talk about the key being retention and engagement. So,
Hmm.
and we dabbled in like, okay, so customer service. So we've talked
Hmm.
about two things. Like obviously it's how you're responding and to people when things go wrong. You have
Hmm.
opportunities now. We've talked about to reach out proactively to
Yep.
solicit feedback, and you're going to get a lot
Hmm.
more of that than you probably expect sometimes, depending on what you do. Keep it short and sweet. Don't send an
Hmm.
overwhelmingly long email that inevitably is like, I don't have time to read this. It's just like,
Yep.
hey, it's
Hmm.
Pooch from Repkord. I appreciate your order. Thank you so much for supporting our small business. Just want to make sure how'd the build go? Like
Hmm.
everything good? Like write it in a voice. So
Yep.
I think you and I have a little bit of a different voice. Let's talk about that for just a second,
Ooh, that's a good one. Hmm.
because there are differing opinions in terms of like how you want to represent the company,
Hmm.
and we talked about a lot of times when you're just getting started, you almost want to like overstate who you are so that you feel like you're being taken
Hmm.
seriously, right?
Sure.
And
Hmm.
so you talk in the we, you talk in the,
Hmm.
you use that voice. You love to use
Hmm.
the we. I
Hmm.
tend to use the I, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I prefer people to understand that this is a small business and this is you're dealing with
Sure.
me. And a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
I get people excited. I'm like, oh my god, I'm actually getting to talk to Pooch. As silly as that sounds, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
talk myself up,
Mm-hmm.
but as weird as that is, they're like, oh my
Uh-huh.
god, I get to talk to the owner, right? And
Yep.
like, how cool is that?
Uh-huh.
And of course, yeah, like I want to know. I am
Mm-hmm.
that close to the operation still. Now, as we grow, I know I need to be less that way, but
Mm-hmm.
I still like that voice. I still
Yes.
like people understanding that this is a personal relationship of sorts. Tell me your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on the
Absolutely.
voice.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting topic, and I think we could definitely dive way deeper in this. Scratching the surface, I typically tend to use that royal we, where I do say, oh,
Perillo saying the
we do
royal we.
this, or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's just one of those things where now the other piece that comes into it is that I do have a business partner, I do have a co-founder,
There is a
and
we.
in many,
Yeah.
there is a we,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's many times the customers, like, or even here on these podcasts, they get to see my face a
Yeah.
lot more than the
Yeah.
other ones. The other Andrew, he does work on the back end, and I'm not trying to diminish any of his efforts here. It's and so in many cases, by me using that royal we, or even just saying we in general, it's also
Absolutely.
trying to be inclusive. um
Absolutely. And I'm
so
not
yeah.
suggesting that you don't, recognize credit. And I understand
Sure.
we have a different mechanics of our
Mhm.
ownership structure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and but there absolutely is a point that you're making there, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is when we got started, we actually didn't kind of talk about ourselves. There was no about us section. There was no Andrew and Andrew. There was no, just it was just, oh, we at 3D Gloop do this, and we would use the scientists and this sort of stuff. Kind of removing that human element, and that was where it kind of we realized, is like, well, maybe that wasn't the best plan. And when we started incorporating more of that human element, we actually started to see sales pick up. People were like more in time, like tying in with the brand. They really kind of supported things a lot more.
Right.
So there's absolutely some merit to what you're saying, and
Yeah.
it's something really, you guys, as small business owners, whether you're an Etsy shop or you have 5 or 10 people, yeah, it's absolutely, I think, important for even the owners, just to get in there and get into the trenches and
Yeah.
talk with customers.
Yeah.
Join live streams, whatever it might be.
You know,
So
we have a little bit of healthy debate going on in the chat here. Grant from 3D Musketeers is talking about always use we, always, unless, of course, there's a screw up. He takes full blame. I take full blame for the screw up. Otherwise, it's a team. It's a we. It's not a me.
mhm.
Perillo, I'm kind of in his camp in some regards here too, where people are clearly a one person business and they do the we and
Sure.
they try to, overstate who they are, right? And so
Okay,
I
yeah.
think it's a balance, and I think it depends on the context, right? It's not a clearly always one way or another. But I'm kind of with him. I toyed with the idea of like, should I be CEO? I'm like, it's ridiculous. The notion of what a CEO is a lot of the time
Mhm,
when you're talking about these small businesses, like there is not that is
mhm,
nothing analogous to what a traditional CEO is. And so
mhm,
I go back to just founder owner as
mhm,
a startup business, because I don't want to overstate who we are, and
mhm.
frankly I don't think it's in our interests to overstate. I think that there's a
Yep.
lot of value in people understanding the size of your business and who you're engaging with and all of that stuff. So
Mhm,
I see arguments for both, and I think it just
mhm.
depends on the context. But to get back to the whole voice thing, the reason I brought it up was we're talking about customer interaction. So whether it's
Mhm.
you're choosing to proactively reach out, or you're having to respond to something,
Yep.
I'm going to tell you what works for me. So if you guys want to
Mhm.
take notes, anybody wants actionable stuff, but like the base stuff, and this is actually appropriate because I am training somebody now to be the level 1 support guy below me, because I just
Mhm.
don't have capacity to do all of it. And so
Mhm.
which is good. We're growing, and I am level 2. So if it has to, it gets escalated. But 80/20, there's two reasons I'm training this guy. One, he's on my production team and I want to close the loop so he has some context of cause and effect. When you screw up the order, there are people that send us emails, and I want you to see and learn how to resolve those things and to understand and to get some context around, like, hey, if I've got 5 customers complaining about this same thing, maybe there's some opportunity to do it a little differently here. So there's some good training going on. But
absolutely,
part of the training is I am coaching on the voice that I want you to use. I have no problem with him saying, hey, this is, using his own name and all this stuff. But it's always default to humility. No matter how much somebody's coming guns blazing or ridiculous it is, I do have one guideline for him. I said, if they're cussing at you, if they're overly verbally abusive, immediately escalate them to me. I do not want you to feel like you're having to weather any kind of abuse. That is not, you are not paid for that. That is not your thing. So that is rule number 1. Rule number 2 is we always use thank you so much for letting us know the problem, reaching out, even if it's something that they clearly broke on their own or whatever. I apologize for the inconvenience. We always take a position of humility, and all this stuff. It's, I hear you. I recognize your problem. So you restate like, and here's what we're going to do about it. And you respond within 24 hours. So that those are our guidelines for support. Everybody that emails or hits us on the contact form or the thing is going to get a response within a reasonable amount of time during business hours. We have business hours. Same thing with the chat. We have automation on there that says, like, if you try to chat us, then we're not there. It'll say, hey, you can send us an email. We'll get to it as soon as we're back in the office. Okay. But we're setting some basic guidelines. And then it's, again, humility. This is, and I encourage him, use your name. Like, this is, Mike, I'm just using a fake name from Repkord. So sorry, like, and we will acknowledge the problem and oftentimes say, like, I want to share this with our production team. We want to do better. Here's what we're doing for you. Tracking to follow. It sounds so obvious and simple, but just doing those basic things wins over so many people because they weren't even expecting to get a response in the first place. And that's all you have to do. Like, if you're doing that, you're better than a lot of people out there.
And that's terrible.
Isn't it though? I mean, am I wrong? Am I wrong? I don't know.
No, you're not wrong.
Okay.
It's just, it's sad that that's all it takes is just, to respond in many cases.
So tonality, as James brings it, is as much a branding exercise as your logo is. That's a very good point. Like, it is. Who are you? So those are some tips that have worked for us over the years and have won over repeat customers time and time again. There are more tools out there. Some people are joking about AI. Is Andrew and St. Prentice in the chat was asking if Andrew's an AI. He's very sophisticated AI. But there are more tools coming out. With Chat GBT has been huge in the in social media this week and in the previous, just as of late. And so as those things come online, what are your thoughts on that? Because I've gotten into some debates about you don't need to do that. You can just like have these chat bots that are out there. I don't know. What do you think?
If you take a look at our branding and, you look at our company lore, right? We're all about, again, AI and all of that other fun stuff, but you can't, I'm a firm believer, you cannot remove the human element from that customer service. You might be able to wrap around some generic, like, programmatic things like, oh, hey, we see that someone's asking about an order. It's like, okay, hey, here's information about your order. But, I know personally, like, it's like, if I'm trying to get to talk to someone, I want to talk to someone. I don't want to talk to a robot. I don't want to I just want to talk to someone. And so how can we make that as short as possible to talk to someone?
So Grant's screaming, no chat bots. Calm down, Grant. We hear you. What's interesting is ours, I don't know. There are ways to put guardrails on the default Shopify chat bot. And there are some useful tools because a lot of people are just like, hey, can I get my tracking info? And there is an interface for that. But it is not thankfully it's not so invasive that you have to navigate all these things before you can get to a human. Like it'll immediately ping anytime
Yep.
somebody is like trying to chat, and I can watch and
Mm-hmm.
see if they just got, oh, perfect, got the tracking, I'm good to go, and they're gone. So
Mm-hmm.
I actually like that approach, and there are ways to kind of fine tune it, and there's ways to put an autoresponder up so they know, like, hey, I'm out in the shop, so I'm not immediately
Mm-hmm.
sitting there just waiting to chat, but I'll get to it as quickly as we can, and it's a great place for us to
Absolutely.
brand as well, because we say, hey, we're small and mighty, and we're going to get to this as quickly as we can. We hear you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's worked out great for us. I think that was a huge value add when Shopify put that on their platform. Chris Perillo's comment, it's all about listening. I mean, we said that as well.
Mm-hmm.
You got to
Yep.
listen and acknowledge. The other little tidbit that I would add, my little secret sauce I'm going to share, is take the opportunity to like go a step further and just ask a leading question sometimes. So you get your feedback. You say, I hear you. We're going to do this. Hey, by the way, how did the build go? Or if
Mm-hmm.
it's somebody you know, or if they mention something personal in the thing, like, I was up late because, you know, our it's the only time I have because we just had a baby or something like that. Like, that's a great
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to engage back with, like, congrats on your new kid. Give
Yeah.
some little piece of like human interaction to the whole thing so that they don't think they're talking to an AI and that they know they're talking to
Yep.
a human. And like that goes like amazingly far, guys, and it takes
Yep.
no effort whatsoever. Like you'll be surprised how much little extra stuff people want to tell you about what their experience has been, and it gives you a great opportunity to engage. So again,
Mm-hmm.
engagement, listening, fixing the problem, and engaging.
Mm-hmm.
And I get people like emailing me back after the fact, long after the sale, telling me, hey, I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've seen this, like I came up with this custom roller expansion. Like there are so many cool little accessories people have made for our product that are all over
That's
printables and
amazing.
thingiverse,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to just genuinely like, hey, I made this and I just wanted you to see it and share it, and sometimes I'll tweet about it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's the gold. That is the gold.
That is. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it literally costs you nothing but a few seconds of time, which, you know,
Mm-hmm.
becomes more and more valuable as you go. Those are the harder things to teach. You
Mm-hmm.
know, not everybody has that gift of gab or customer service
Sure.
centric thing,
Mm-hmm.
but you'd be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
You can get that little personal nugget in there. That's gold, people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yeah, you know, the other thing that Perillo's mentioned, speaking of gold mine here, is just throwing up great stuff. It's very clear when somebody wants to just vent versus solve a problem.
Yep.
Clue number one is, do they even give you the ability to respond, right? Like where they use that fake name, they know they're being an asshat and just, you know,
Yeah.
like I'm just gonna yell at you and you can't even respond, which is just like,
We've had some of those
say
too.
it to
Yeah.
my face. God, like
Yep.
what was wrong with these people? My
Yep.
address,
Mm-hmm.
guys, is for the shop address is clearly on the website and stuff. Come say it to my face if you dare. I will throw that out there. Because I guarantee you the conversation will be completely different if you come and you see what we're doing.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I'm sorry something got cracked or forgotten and stuff. Like when you see the chaos that we really are, you might, you know, have a little bit of empathy. But I don't know. I don't want anybody's
Yeah.
pity. And ultimately, like this stuff fuels us to do better. So it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good.
Yeah.
All right. We have to wrap up. We've done a solid 60. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we're closing in on a solid 60.
Yeah.
What's some last minute advice, tidbits, other things that in the context of your customers, we kind of
Mm-hmm.
dabbled on like the customer value. We've talked about, let's sum it up. Your
Yep.
metric. Where can people learn
Mm-hmm.
more about customer
Well, yeah.
customer value?
So yeah.
Like
So I
metrics.
mean, just look up that customer lifetime value. Yeah. I mean, it can be called a
CLV.
lot of different things. But yeah, so looking up your lifetime value per customer lifetime value, basically a recurring customer rate, all of those things. Those really play a big role into how do you project and forecast as a business owner. Because even if you are a one-off product, there are going to be multiple people that are going to come back and they're going to buy replacements. Or let's say, for instance, you have a product and it eventually has a lifespan and it breaks. Does a customer give you the benefit of the doubt, like, oh, I broke it, I know, or do they come back and they, like, do they order from you, or how does that play into your business model? And how do you grow from there? And then other things like, what is your customer acquisition cost? That's another huge one. So we didn't
Yeah.
even really dive into this. Is like, as a growing business, if you're starting from nothing and you have to get customers, what is your customer acquisition cost? In many cases, you should really understand this, break this down, and include that in your product markup. So, I
And
know,
that
for
and that's
instance, for
variable.
us,
That's going to
it is.
cost more when you're trying to make a name for yourself when you're just getting started, right?
Exactly. And so for us, we don't really do any advertising, but we do have, industry influencers, content creators, whatever. We might allow them to give away products. We might,
Sure.
sponsor giveaways, whatever it might be. And so we have, as a business, we understand about how much that is per month or how many bottles we're going to give away. We kind of have a budget in mind so that we know this is our customer acquisition costs. And it just kind of feeds into those calculations
Yeah.
to get a good understanding of, like, okay, how much can we afford to spend on advertising? We don't advertise right now, but in the future we are going to plan on advertising as we've kind of grown a little bit, and paying for those Facebook ads, those Instagram ads, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
understanding what it costs to get a customer. And then after we get that customer, as I was saying, we have a reoccurring customer rate. So how many of those customers come back? And then how long, is it till they come back? And then how much money can we expect to make off that customer?
Yeah.
Because again, a business is in business to make money,
Right.
and it's okay to understand this and accept this. And yes, you need to treat your customers with respect and, kindness and all of this other stuff. But as the business owner, you also have to understand, like, how do you make the customer work for you? Because you have to make
Mm,
money in order to keep it working. And again, I'm
interesting.
being a little blunt here, but you know.
Yeah, yeah, and but it's a very important part of it too. Like I
Mhm.
understand, like, and I think that's where we pair interestingly. Like I am much less metrics, much more like human interface.
Mhm. Mhm.
But there is merit to both, and honestly, having that business intelligence tool is huge. The other thing I would add would be that you don't have to be like, yes, you can budget. Hopefully,
Mhm.
if you have an advertising budget, a marketing advertising budget, you know what you want to generally add work on,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you're gonna look at how that performs, and then you're gonna decide if it's worth doing, continue doing. And you can there's a lot of there's no one right way for everybody to do it. You're gonna throw some stuff up there, and some stuff's gonna work, some stuff's not. Sometimes it's about the messaging that you use. Like you just didn't have a good
Mhm.
ad that resonated. Sometimes you didn't segment your targeted
Yep.
people correctly. Like it takes a little bit of messing around
Mhm.
with, and it can be an expensive proposition, right? And so
Yep.
when you're bootstrapped and you don't have a healthy marketing advertising budget, but the other things that go
Mhm.
into that besides buying ads of some kind
Mhm.
are things like you're talking about, like anytime you're doing giveaways or going to, like all
Mhm.
that stuff falls into our marketing advertising promotional budget, right?
Discounts. You're going to give a
Discounts,
discount on your product. Exactly. Like sometimes you say, hey, new customers, you're going to get a 20% discount. And also, you do have to take into consideration, how does that make your previous customers feel, or your reoccurring customers feel? I think I saw a message in the chat where you see these telecom companies like, oh, new signups get, our yearly contract thing for 99 bucks a month for internet or whatever it is. And it's only for new customers, but it's like, I've
right?
been a faithful customer for years. What are you doing for
Oh
me?
man,
You know?
yeah, the ISPs are the
And
notorious for that. I hate it.
exactly, yeah. So, how do you, because again, this all goes into your customer acquisition costs. It's like, if I'm going to give a discount of 25% for a bottle of Gloop, I'm making less money on that.
Right,
But it means I could make more potential sales. I may be able to access people that I wasn't able to access before,
right,
and
right.
then convert those people. But also, how does that impact other people who have bought our product before? And it's a very complex issue. So,
For sure.
you don't have to go into the details. You could just kind of say, okay, well, hey, we're just going to wing it. And a lot of times that's what we do. We
Yeah.
wing it until we get it. And if
Fake
it
it till
works,
you
it
make
works.
it.
If it doesn't, you know. So
I think the one last thing I'd like to wrap up with that we didn't add to is I think it's about meeting people where they want to be. So Sam Prentice mentioned this.
sure.
Liz actually had a comment earlier in the chat about a phone call going a long way. We are in an
Mhm.
age where people don't generally want to be on the phone anymore. I don't like phone calls. They're
Mhm.
disruptive to the day, and they're not like, I don't have the luxury of having somebody operators standing by
Yeah.
to answer calls, right? And so but sometimes like that you when you're following up, people just want like I'll get emails every once in a while like, hey, we want to place this order, but I have some questions. Can somebody just call me about this? And I'll call. Like I'll call if
Mhm.
that's their preferred communication method. I'm not above it. A lot of times yes, we could probably answer it with an email or whatever else, but
Mhm.
having an understanding of what the customer needs and wants and communicating in the way they want to communicate can be a
Mhm.
big value add as well.
Sure.
Right. And then
Mhm.
just hearing a voice, right? Like hearing a
Mhm.
human voice on the other end that's applying that humanity I talked about. So,
Yep.
lots of good tidbits, guys, in the chat. I hope anybody that's been watching has felt like they've gotten some stuff that they some nuggets that have been useful to them.
Mhm.
We encourage you to give us feedback. We know that usually I disclaim at the top of the show, but we don't pretend to have it figured all figured out.
Oh,
We're learning as we go too.
heavens no.
I've shared with you guys some stuff that I know we need to work on better, and
Mhm.
we all grow better together, right? The
Mhm.
rising tide lifts all benchies.
Oh, yes.
Like we're all in it together. But we appreciate you guys being here. We hope that you continue to enjoy your weekend, that you have a safe and relaxing and comfortable weekend, and that you get to do something that makes you happy. Because in the end of the day, that's what it's about, in my opinion.
Mhm.
In my opinion,
Absolutely.
it's my podcast. It's our podcast. So we can give all the opinions we want, right, Andrew?
Yep, that's it.
All right, man. Well, listen, this has been an awesome conversation, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week for more exciting stuff. We'll pick another topic. Maybe that sustainability piece
Mm,
would be good,
yeah.
and I think
Yep.
that'd be appreciated on multiple fronts and multiple business models. Talking about
Mhm.
avoiding the burnout,
Yeah.
because
Oh,
man, is that hard sometimes. So
yep.
teaser for
Yep.
next time. Are we in? Are we committing to that right now? Right now? And then we don't have to
I mean,
frantically
I
pick
think
something
it's
on Thursday night next week.
hey, I think it's a great one.
All right,
But
there it
let's
is.
ask people, what do you guys
What
think?
do you guys think? You want to hear about sustainability and burnout and avoiding it? Tell us in the chat. Tell us on the Twitters. Tell us wherever you want. Give us a call if you like. We'll post
Mhm.
Andrew's phone number in the description. He's always eager to get your calls. Okay,
Oh, yes.
I'm just kidding. All right, guys, we love you. Have a fantastic weekend, and we will catch you on the next Maker That Money with Pooch and Andrew of 3D Gloop. Bye bye.
See ya.